Welcome to my channel. Today in this video lecture we will learn about an influential critic, Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak, and her work Can Subaltern Speak? We also see about the subaltern theory. We will try to understand her position, literary criticism, her contribution, her important work and the key concepts. So dear friend, the lecture is full of information about the basic concepts, different literary terms, critics, her views, opinions. So I request you not to skip any part of the video and watch it till the end so that you can understand it very well, and please do like, share, subscribe my video, and please comment too. So dear friend, the main objective of our lecture is to understand the position of Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak in her criticism, her work and her contribution to criticism and the literature as well, her concept of subaltern theory, her concept of subaltern, and try to widen the scope of our knowledge by understanding the major critic. Okay, the history of the world clearly shows us that there are two types of sections in our society. One is the upper class of the society, which is economically and socially enjoys all kinds of benefits, freedoms available in the society. The another section is the people who at the bottom level of the society. So they are economically and socially undisadvantaged, and in fact they are always dominated and neglected. The process of documenting or capturing the history of the society, the facts were distorted and there were a lot of misrepresentations regarding to the people at the bottom level of the society is represented in the history. Having realized the importance of rewriting of the historiography of the nations to voice the unvoiced or voiceless and bringing them back to the mainstream of the activities of the society, a group of historians initiated the subaltern theory. The word subaltern, dear friend, now let us see what do we mean by subaltern. The word subaltern stands for of inferior rank or status, inferior in rank or status. For example, you may take the registrar and sub-registrar, or you may take the example of inspector and sub-inspector. Now, sub means the secondary, subordinate of rank, or subordinate in power, or secondary in power, in authority, and in action. In other words, it refers to the subordination of the class, caste, gender, race, language, and culture. It also indicates to those groups in society who are subject to the domination of the ruling classes. In general, subaltern classes includes peasants, workers, and the other groups of the society who have been denied access to the hegemonic power. The idea of the subaltern was mainly referred to by the Italian Marxist political thinker, that is Antonio Gramsci, in his article Notes on Italian History, which published later on as a part of his most extensive acknowledged book, Prism's Notes book, Prism Notes books, written between 1929 and 1935. Though the book presents notebooks, the term subaltern became very important concept in the domain of the socio-cultural studies and its related theories. Then the term was given in a broader social, political, and economic connotations by Gramsci to denote the non-capitalist, non-bourgeois subordinate classes or groups, the proletariat or the workers, peasants, socially unrecognized, that were non-hegemonic in nature. He affirmed that the subaltern was the term subjected to the people of underclass in a society on whom the dominant power puts forth its hegemonic power and impact. The term subaltern in general indicates a kind of a deprived person which symbols within the representation of the oppressors and the oppressed. A subaltern is a certain kind of a person with a low ranking in a social, political, economical, or other chain of command. Okay, it also denotes to the individual who have given marginalized or who have been marginalized and oppressed. So Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak's outstanding article "Can Subalterns Speak?", which is written in 1988, scrutinizes the subaltern concept from the most theoretical perspective. According to her, subaltern cannot speak. Now, she opines that the subaltern does not have a voice, and in her essay, she writes, the subaltern cannot speak. There is no virtue in a global laundry list with women appears. Representations has not withdrawn away. The female intellectual has a circumscribed task which she must not disown with a flourish. Of late post-colonial theory as a part of new field of study has become one of the most prominent academic disciplines in the world of literature. Post-colonial literature persistently generated an enormous literature, especially by literary critics, feminists, art of critics, social reformists, political scientists, political economists, everybody. So the insistence, the continuous expansion of the post-colonialism in its new account made its own dominant of attention extended beyond the other field of the global academics like African American literature, literary theory and criticism, anthropology, cultural studies, and subsequently subaltern studies has become one of the part of this or subdivision of the post-colonial theory. So, reading of the subaltern studies began in India when the writings initiated about the subaltern studies began in a book review. So, primarily, every volume in the series was reviewed independently as a collection of the essays, but by the 1986, an increase in writing inside and outside of the project had been launched a unique school of research whose supporters came to be called as the subalternist or the subalterns. Their influential essays published in 1988 as selected subaltern studies, and that was published by the Oxford University Press in New York and Oxford. And that book was edited by Ranjit Guha and Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak with a foreword of Edward Said. We can say that we can see that this is a kind of an historical event in the South Asian studies. So during the 1990s, subaltern studies turned as a hot topic in the academic circles, ranging from the history to the political science, anthropology, sociology, literary criticism, cultural studies, and across the globe. So subaltern studies extended the area or literary area as the subaltern studies groups or the subaltern studies collectives which was launched in 1980s by a group of eminent Indian scholars. The subaltern studies groups in each earnest attempts to restudy the Indian history and the society as a description with a large number of contagious topics. Among them is the problematic issues of the subaltern subjects and its constitutions in the Indian historiography. So, therefore, let us try to understand the concept of the subaltern theory from the prominent thinker Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak. Okay. So, dear friend, Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak was born in Calcutta. She was born in 1942 in West Bengal and educated at the University of Calcutta. She then moved to US where she studied a comparative literature with Paul Damon, a famous critic, and she began teaching at the University of Iowa. Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak is an Indian scholars and literary theorists and feminist critic too. She is a university professor at Columbia University, and she is the co-founder of the Institute of the Comparative Literature and Society. She is considered as one of the most influential post-colonial intellectuals. She translated Jacques Derrida's On Grammatology, and her introduction to the translation has become the most influential piece of literary criticism. She has been awarded a prize in art and philosophy in 2012 for being a critical theorist and educator. She is regarded as one of the spokesperson for the underprivileged and for the women globally. She translated Mahashweta Devi's Stanadaini into English as a breast giver in 2006. So, which shows her passion for the women in subjugations. According to Spivak, subaltern means, in one of her interview, she said, or she gave voice to her concept of subalternity, and she said that subaltern refers to those who don't give orders, but they only receive the orders. That comes from the Antonio Gramsci's work, and who made the word current. But the subaltern also means to those who do not have access to the structure of citizenship. So Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak is well known for her openly political use of the contemporary cultural and critical theories to confront the inheritance of the colonialism on the way we read and reflect about the literature and culture. Her critical interventions includes a range of the theoretical interests such as Marxism, feminism, deconstructions, post-colonial theory, and subaltern studies. She has challenged the disciplinary conventions of the literary criticisms and academic philosophies by centering on the cultural text of those people who are often marginalized by overriding Western cultures. The new immigrants and the working class women's post-colonial subjects. The concept of the subaltern stimulated to a further intricate theoretical discussions with the involvement of the well-known Indian American post-colonial feminist critic, that is the Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak. She examined the concept subaltern in her essay Can Subaltern Speak, which is written in 1988. So, in her essay, she challenged the idea of the colonial and the Western subject and offers the example of the boundaries of the capability of the Western discourse, even the post-colonial discourse, to interrelated with a conjoined cultures. Her groundbreaking essay marked a paradigm shift in the post-colonial studies. Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak expresses her disapproval of the subalternity analysis analyzed by the subaltern studies groups. In the beginning, she tries to circumvent this problem by arguing that the subaltern historian do not just offer counter narratives but also deconstruct the concept of the history. Her allegation seems negated by the very claim that most of the articles make a revisionism. Edward Said, in his preface, identifies these claims and admits that these historians as authentic indigenous voices against the colonialist nationalist history. So the subaltern historian speaks for the ingenious genuine history, but they cannot survive independent of the historians they deauthorize as the bourgeois nationalists. Dear friend, India is a land of variety and variety. So it is divided into different states in the name of class, religion, language, ethnicity, gender, and citizenship. In this scattered outlook, the condition of the subaltern is all the more pathetic. So Spivak came to the forefront of the literary circle with her celebrated essay, that is Can Subaltern Speak? The essay vindicates the apprehensions of the women in India who practice the widow sacrifice known as sati. So the practice of sati in pre-independent India was considered as a part of a barbaric culture by the Western world. So it was a finest example to support the argument that the subaltern woman did not get the opportunity to transact their ideas and to convince the society about their dissenting voice. So women in the pre-independent India played the role of a parasite. Parasite is a separate living organism like a woman, and it does not have independent existence. Once the main tree fall down, the existence of the parasite is under threat. The tree and the parasite cease to exist at the same time. The woman is not different from the parasite. The moment her husband dies, the woman lost her identity as an individual and regains her individuality with her husband's on the funeral pyre. In Can Subaltern Speak, Spivak comes up with the contention that sati should have been read with the martyrdom. A martyr does not die for himself or herself. His or her blood is spilled for the cause of the others, in which she or he has no personal advantage. The women who burnt themselves as satis, they were martyrs. This martyrdom was in fact a kind of a protest against society, and since it failed to recognize their roles in the society along with the kin and the relatives of their families. So the essay Can Subaltern Speak discusses the problem of the widow sacrifice in great detail, and Spivak she illustrates her standpoints that subaltern cannot speak and the condition of the woman is even more complicated. Though women obeyed the whims and the fancies of their men, they had a voice within themselves, a voice of dissent and disapproval. All women who became victims of the patriarchal violence and atrocities had something to say, or they wanted to make their position clear whether they were for or against a propositions. The historian failed to record all the voices of the dissent and especially that of the subaltern women. So Spivak, faced with this complexity of identifying the areas of the subalternity, alters to reevaluate the issues of the subaltern groups by dealing with the tribulation of the gender above all Indian women during the colonial times. She revealed on the standing of the Indian women, relying on her analysis of a case of Sati woman practices under the British colonial rule. She considered Sati woman as a subaltern group. At this juncture, it can be noticed clearly that Hindu woman loses her voice in such a conflicting situations between two opposite ways that continuously taunts her to make a choice. The voice of the Hindu woman vanished while these two discursive groups tried to give her a voice. Finally, the Hindu woman disappeared not into the pristine nothingness but into the violent shuttling which is displaced figurations of the third world woman caught between the tradition and the modernizations. So Spivak conclude at the end that the subaltern cannot speak. So this is the last pronouncement that she made in the essay was controversially interpreted. Her analysis of the power relation in colonial and the post-colonial India reveals the dramatic persistence gender inequalities. If in the context of the colonial productions the subaltern has no history and cannot speak, subaltern as female is even more deeply shallow. Her example of Sati, a widow sacrifice, illustrates the ways and the imperialism codified and redefined the narrative practice as a crime, transforming the realm of the free choice and the power into one of the juridical repressions. So, because the female subaltern disappears into the violent shuttling between the tradition and the modernization, she cannot speak. So, in Can Subaltern Speaks, she propounds her theory of subalternity. The main crux of her theory is that the subaltern cannot speak. The tenet of the theory become controversial as they were interpreted with the false convictions. So, her theory of subalternity does not admit the concept that subaltern cannot talk. See, we must have to understand here the difference between the speaking, and the talk. So, Gayatri Spivak has attached a special significance to the term speak in her essay. By speaking, she means the transactions between the speaker and the receiver. Okay, so when a subaltern try to speak, the message that they try to communicate becomes or totally distorted. Okay, it happens in a continuous process because others are not ready to listen to them. So as people turn to deaf ear to the pleas of the subalterns and the communication system fails and no transactions takes place. So the subaltern are not able to have a transactions with the other because of their disparity that exists in the society. The subalterns were subjected to the colonial rule, only the colonizers had a voice. The entire concept of the voice is determined by the subject, and the category of the other does not have voice of his or her own. After the colonial rule, the subalterns were again subordinated to the elite upper class. The subaltern woman continues to suffer, and there is little scope for the further improvement. Therefore, by exploring the conditions of the oppressed women, particularly in India. She managed to explain on the original differentiation of the ideas of the subaltern as it was first developed by Ranjit Gua and other through the basic investigations of the happenings and the problems of the women in general, either from the lower class or the peasantry class or from the upper middle class or the elite class. So she stands for women as a distinguished gender because of the disgraceful exclusion of their contribution in the anti-colonial history. So Gayatri Spivak, she challenges the question of the female participations in any movement or anything or any ground rules or the sexual divisions of the labors, for both of which there is an evidence. Rather, the both genders were used as the object of the colonialist historiography and as a subject of the insurgency through the ideological constructions. But if in the context of the colonial productions, the subaltern has no history and cannot speak, the subaltern as female is even more deeply shallow. So Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak's theory of subalternity is still relevant as the people suffers in the name of gender, class, creed. As change is the only permanent thing in the world, and subalterns should continue to make their positions clear before the authorities. It is only when the authority needs to plea of the subalterns that the new dawn of the life may be enjoyed by the subaltern in its fullness. So, dear friend, this is what my views about the Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak and her theory of subalternity and her essay, Can Subalterns Speak? Hope you understand it, you like it. So, dear friend, please like, share, subscribe my channel and comment on my video too. And here in the poll, we have some questions. So please answer that whether you like it or not.